Certifications 101. And before we get started, I'm going to do a little bit of housekeeping. We want to answer your questions for you. So as we go, if you can enter your questions there's both a chat box and a Q&A, and if you can put them in the Q&A section so that they don't get lost in the chat box if that happened to go long. And then I'm going to put out a poll here in a little bit to see who's on. And with that, we'll just get started. So for tonight, we're going to do a little intro of ourselves, and then we'll talk about what our goals are for this webinar. And then we'll talk about the certifications benefits. We'll do a little bit of entry-level summary. I'm going to tell you about some certifications that are available for you out there, and then we'll jump into talking with David, and he'll get more specific and show you the EcoLeaders certification with the National Wildlife Federation. So my name is Laura, and I've had a long, twisty career, but most recently I'm the past president of the Tampa Bay Association of Environmental Professionals and the founder of the Environmental Career Coach, which that started when I was the president of the TBAEP and working with our student chapters. I have been the leader of a Women in STEM and Environmental Careers group for the last 3 years, and we've had a annual workshop every year that has sold out, which has been awesome. And then I spent about 13 years in environmental science before jumping off into career coaching. And now I moved into more conference planning role with the National Association of Environmental Professionals. So I originally was with the Tampa chapter, which was local, a certified project manager, and I also do business consulting and have a business doing that. So, and let's see, David has this super long, impressive list. So I'm going to let him tell you what he thinks is most important about himself.
Sure. Thank you, Laura. So right now I am the Career Center Manager at the National Wildlife Federation. We have a number of programming for K-12 and for higher education, and our Career Center is primarily geared toward college students, university students, but is also useful to 11th and 12th graders that are starting to plan out their academic and career paths. We focus on project-based leadership development, and I'll talk more about that when I get into the certification. All of our philosophies around certification center around working on a project, leading a project, and like I said, I'll get more into that soon. One of the big things that we organize each year is Eco Careers Conference. That'll be coming up in February 27th and 28th, where we bring in experts in green careers, as well as representatives of employers from large to small, public, private, all to talk about what programs they have for people that are interested in jobs and sustainability and where they see the green economy going. A little bit about my background real quick. I spent about 9 years as an environmental engineer working on water and wastewater projects, primarily for municipalities. On the side, I did a lot of volunteerism with Water for which is an international water and sanitation development organization. And that led me to get a master's in public administration. And part of that was a 2-year stint with the Peace Corps in the Republic of Armenia, where I worked with a variety of different nonprofit organizations. And that's what led me to the National Wildlife Federation.
Awesome. Thank you. We're really glad to have you here tonight to talk with us. All right. So at this point, I'm going to turn off my camera because otherwise I end up talking to myself. So
I will follow suit.
Okay. Just make sure you turn your microphone back on if it turns off both. All right. So our goals for the webinar for this evening are to give you a high-level overview of the benefits of certifications, getting certified. And the idea sort of came up from going to the NAEP conference last year. The National Association of Environmental Professionals Their conference was in March, and we did an emerging professionals workshop, and there were some questions from people about where can I get certifications, or, you know, I'm entry level. How do I know if they exist for me? Do I have to wait till I have some experience? And then I met David, and we talked about this is a great opportunity to just kind of combine having a talk about general certification, and then more specifically having an example with the EcoLeaders. So I'm going to do a little bit of introduction about certifications in general, and then, like I said, he'll talk about the EcoLeaders. And then we'll hopefully we'll answer all of your questions, all the Q&A that we get, and we have some questions to answer for you as well. So first, I wanted to start off and make sure that it's really clear, because if you don't have a certification, you might not even be sure what you're looking for here. So a certification versus a certificate. A certification is more of a recognition of professional accomplishment, and it usually provides you with access to a network and some additional resources. They usually require renewal after a specific period of time, and that renewal often is based on having some continuing education that shows that you're continuing to meet the standard. And a lot of times there are some sort of accredited or the accreditation for that subject, and they outline a standard of ethics that accompanies it. So not only do you just get the certification from them, but you also, you know, it's like the Boy Scouts or Girl Scouts, you also are promising to adhere to whatever ethics that they say goes along with having that certification. So a certificate is more just recognizing an academic accomplishment, and it's usually a one-time thing. So that might be getting a certificate from a continuing education program or a graduate certificate. That's more just like taking a course, and then you get the certificate that comes on a piece of paper afterwards. And then the certification versus membership. This is another thing that's a little bit confusing, or can be. They both typically have dues, and the memberships are usually benefits-based, so they offer some access to resources, maybe even some group and some volunteer things, but not necessarily a certification with it. The certification is more attached to the qualification that you've either passed an exam. It has letters that you can attach to your name usually. So when you see someone put their name on their resume or email signature and they have letters, it means that they've gotten some sort of certification, which also then implies a certain level of competency within that. And then so often it comes with benefits, but sometimes that's a separate thing. So for example, if you go get your professional certified project management professional certification, then that requires that you have a certain amount of time in from actual on-the-job project management, and it requires that you pass a test. It requires that you take a certain amount of training, and then you can apply for it and you pass the test and you get the certification. But you can also apply to be a member of the Project Management Institute. So they're two separate things. So I can have my certification, take it with me on my happy way, and continue to do my education credits so that I can renew it in a couple of years. And I can do that all on my own. If I get their membership, then I also have access to a local network of people who meet every month, courses online, discounts to books, volunteer opportunities, and a lot of times they'll have courses that have the professional development credits that you need attached to it. So if you do get a certification, you always want to check if there is a membership with it that you could combine so that you get the most out of it. So why would you even consider this? It adds credibility. So like I talked about the project management certification, if you have those credentials, you're actually guaranteed about $20,000 more a year than your equal who doesn't have that in the job seeking world. And if you are just starting out your career, it might be difficult to get something like that where you have to have hours of experience before you're allowed to take the test. But there are other ones out there that I'll talk about that you can get more at entry level. But once you have it, it adds a little bit of credibility. It says that you are taking the initiative. It shows that you're interested in something. And again, it already gives you access to that larger network. So when you talk about networking, it gives you an opportunity to connect with other people. So when you're in your job search phase, you can always just contact someone and say, hey, I'm new to this area of expertise, or I'm looking at this certification and I see that you have it. I'd like to know a little bit more about it. So that's another good reason to look at it. And then they provide learning opportunities. And let's see, David left me a note here. Some certifications are necessary to apply for a job. Good point. David, you're welcome to turn on your microphone and jump in as well. And then,
Sure.
yeah. And then they can just, a lot of times they actually just add experience for you. And do you want to add to that, David?
Sure. Yeah. So I was thinking about the certifications that I've had that I forgot to mention on the screen. I was, as an engineer, I was required to get the engineer in training certification in order to get hired. And I could work on certain projects, but there were certain projects that they needed, based on the contract we had with our client, professional engineers to work on. So it wasn't until I got my professional engineering's license that I was able to work on some of those other projects. So it unlocks a lot of doors, not just into jobs, but when you have the job, into certain positions and projects.
That's a really great point. I actually know somebody who was hired for a job and then kind of made a promise to her employer that she would get her initial certification. I think it was for an EIT. And sure enough, a year later, she approached them and he remembered that he had told her, well, you can have access to this next level if you go ahead and get that certification. So you may run into that situation as well, where your employer tells you that you need to have it.
Right.
Okay, so this list here was actually put together by Aubrey Gann. She's the student body president for NAEP, and I thank her very much for digging this info up for me. And you can find it, if you'll see the link at the bottom, you can find a list of these on the website, so you don't have to frantically write them down. And she gave a nice little summary of each of them on the website as well. So the first one is the NREP. It's an associated environmental professional. The second one is CEP in training, so a certified environmental professional, and that one is endorsed by the NAEP. The EPI, an environmental professional in training. The EIT, which is the one David just mentioned, is the engineer in training, and it's also referred to an EI, or engineering intern. The AWB is an associate wildlife biologist, and then there's also an ecologist in training and an associate ecologist. So I don't want to go into the details of each one on this webinar, but like I said, you can look up all of those and see which one might be a good fit for you, and then check out their websites and see what they have to offer. Check out not only what their subject is, but do they have that code of ethics? Do they have a membership as along with it that provides you with some benefits, things like that. And then, as David kind of alluded to, the professional level certification, I wanted to just mention these because as you move up in your career, depending what your current experience is and where you land, sometimes it's different than what you thought it might be. These are the typical ones. So if you work in any regulatory agency, there are people with these titles. And then the last couple of ones are kind of across the board and cross over many industries. So the first one is a professional wetland scientist. So these are the people that are out checking permits and taking information from the engineers and going out in the field. Professional engineers who are looking at the drawing designs that people submit for permitting and other things. They're probably employed also by developers and other people who are affecting environments. Professional geologists. And then the project management professional, like I said, is one that crosses industries. The ISO 14000, that's a quality certification, and that one deals in environmental management systems. So that transfers over into manufacturing. Anybody who is working with materials and has a need to reduce their environmental impact and footprint, which also then saves them money. So that's if you're business inclined, that's a great one to know. And then the lead is the leadership in energy and environmental design. So if you are working in the construction development industry, or even just a progressive business, if they are interested in finding LEED certified buildings, this is a good one for you. And David, before we move on to your section, do you have anything to add to those?
Yeah, one of the big things that I'll say also is that always look at professional associations related to the sector that you're most interested in. So if you are an energy engineer, perhaps IREC, the Interstate Renewable Energy Council, is a organization that you want to get involved with, or the AEE, the Association of Energy Engineers. And each of these professional associations have their own structures around certifications, usually different levels. So basically, like, just Googling professional associations for the sector that you want to work in, be it transportation, marketing. I've seen green meeting planning certifications, and so basically finding an organization that is reputable and offers the benefits that you were talking about earlier that's in your sector is another good place to start to find certifications that may be valuable to you. I appreciate that you added LEED. We're partners on a lot of projects with USGBC that offers the LEED certification program. And I'd also add, unless it was on the last one and I missed it, ISSP, the International Society for Sustainability Professionals. They have 2 different levels of certification as well, and are usually for people for sustainability is a core element of their work. So sustainability directors within businesses, or at colleges, or within organizations.
Awesome. Excellent. Yeah, I will add that one to the website. I don't think I do have it on there. And that's a good point too. This isn't an exhaustive list by any means. These are the most popular maybe ones, but depending where you are in the country too, you may have, these are typically ones that are national and have local chapters, but there are definitely other smaller local ones that might have something for you too that are not as big. All right.
Yeah.
And
that's, sorry.
Go ahead. No, it's fine.
We have other things. So one of the smaller, more local certifications that I've worked on here in the Washington, D.C. region is the Anacostia Watershed Society has a steward certification. And basically, you just learn about some of the environmental issues that that particular body of water is dealing with. You go to some classes, you learn about some of the types of projects, and then you do a project in your community. And it's not one that I would be able to really use to advance my career. It's small. It doesn't really cost anything. It's more hands off, but it's a great way to connect more with your community and expand your local network. So I'm glad you mentioned, smaller, more local oriented certifications as well.
Yeah, that's cool. I'm glad you had an example. I'm not surprised that of the DC area that they would have something like that. Yeah, it's all good. Anything that provides you either networking opportunities, experience, and also the opportunity for you to figure out what you do and don't want to do. I thought I wanted to be a park ranger, and then that's a great job, but it wasn't the right job for me. But I thought I did until I volunteered and did it. So even just checking out some of these may help you figure out if that's where you want to go. I also, when I first started my career, thought that I would have sworn to you I was going to be a professional wetland scientist. And in hindsight, I'm glad that my path didn't take me there. It wouldn't have been the right thing. But if I had checked out professional wetland scientist certification information and met some people who were doing that, I might have found that out quicker.
Yeah, and in particular, that last point about meeting people who do it, and the same goes for certifications, is, you know, looking for individuals that have the certifications that you may be considering. Perhaps, I mean, so for instance, green building, I'm a big fan of LEED. It's industry recognized. It's offered by our partner, like I said, USGBC. But at the same time, there's other green certifications that may be valuable to an individual, especially if they're planning to focus on a particular type of built environment. Say they really want to work in hospital building or something where they may want a more specialized certification. When you're weighing those options, talking to people who have the certifications to really get the benefit or the understanding of the benefits is really a great thing that you should do.
Absolutely. You know, just finding out, especially for one you haven't heard of, finding out if the person thinks that it's worth it and whether you should go for it or not. And, you know, it's always hard to take a stranger's advice. You don't know what lens they're giving it to you from, but it's still good to get as much information as you can. But let's jump into your section here on EcoLeaders.
Sure. So I will talk a little bit about, let me see.
David, hold on. Can I let me put the poll out here? I always forget. Yeah. We wanted to find out, I was asked this question on my webinars because I want to find out who we're talking to. So I think this will help David too as he's going through his slides. So if you could just tell us if you are already working or if you've just recently graduated, which you may still be working, but which do you feel that you fit best? Graduating within 6 months or still have a little bit of time left before you're graduating? All right, so we have a mix. It's always a mix. But thank you for your responses. All right, so there you go, David.
Okay, so we have a few working professionals and working or more than 6 months away from graduating. I assume that's graduating from a higher education. If I'm incorrect and you're a high schooler, just go ahead and let me know in the chat box, because that would also be interesting to know. As I already did my bio, so I can skip that, but I do want to say my email address here is corsard@nwf.org. Thanks, Amber, and congratulations in advance for
hi, Amber.
for the degree program that you're working on. And so you're welcome to connect with me, send me an email. You're also welcome to look me up on LinkedIn. I do use LinkedIn pretty regularly. And I'll go ahead and get started here. I'm going to talk a little bit, give an overview about the EcoLeaders program itself, some of the philosophy that goes into our learning and leadership model, how that informs the certification process and exactly what we're certifying with an EcoLeader certification, and a little bit about how certification can work for you, although we've already talked, Laura's already talked a little bit about that in her presentation as well. So what is NWF EcoLeaders? So we have, actually I need to update this infographic over here, because we now have over 2,500 members from all 50 US states plus Puerto Rico and DC and a number of other countries as well. EcoLeaders are coming from over 600 colleges and universities and now high schools as well. And they're leading sustainability projects on their campuses and in their communities, and then applying for and earning recognition of their project-based leadership skills through our certification program. EcoLeaders was launched in 2014. It's an offshoot of the National Wildlife Federation's Campus Ecology program, which has been around since the early 80s, working on college sustainability projects, both with faculty, with staff, with facilities, and also with students. But the EcoLeaders brand is really a career and leadership development program. And one of the defining elements of our NWF EcoLeaders program is the public recognition of both the project leaders and the project itself. And we feel as though this recognition is a way to help sustain the projects, because most of them are on colleges and universities, and the students that did them graduate and move on, and we want those projects to continue. This opportunity for recognition, we feel, is a great way to sustain those projects. So the steps that one takes to become an eco-leader, and again, this informs the certification application and process, is to declare and share one's personal eco-mission. So we ask individuals to think about what are their strengths, what are the sector that they feel most passionate about, that they see themselves making a difference in, and how do they want to put that together, and sort of distill that down to a sentence or 2 sentences, or for some eco-leaders, it's a whole paragraph because they just can't cut it back. And then the second is to advance some sort of a wildlife-related or sustainability eco project on their campus or in their community. And this is really broad. And you may be asking, so if you're the National Wildlife Federation, but my passion is transportation, or like alternate transportation, or renewable energy, where the connection to wildlife isn't necessarily as direct, is that still eligible? Absolutely. We recognize, while wildlife is at the core of our mission, we recognize that we need to heal the planet and the ecosystem, regardless if we're really going to protect wildlife. Another aspect of our, and I'm going to try to go ahead and actually, I'll share my screen in a after I'm done with this slide, so I'm not bouncing back and forth. A third element of becoming an eco-leader is supporting others. It's part of our leadership philosophy that leaders are not formed in a vacuum. And so we offer a number of tools and opportunities for eco-leaders to interact with each other, whether it's on the same campus or across the country. If you've done a project, say, organic garden on your campus, and you have all of the experiences and lessons learned, you then can help students that are at colleges anywhere across the planet with some of the basic lessons learned that you have from your project. The fourth is to earn certification, and I'll get more into the details there. And then finally, to create a career plan. This was added after the EcoLeader program was initially started, as basically to say, okay, we've provided certification. We're standing behind these individuals that have worked on sustainability projects on their campuses or in their communities. We don't want to just drop off and say, okay, now you're on your own. So we've been adding and developing tools to help our certified eco-leaders then transition that certification into a successful career path. I'm going to go ahead and switch over to sharing my screen so that I can show some of these things that I've been talking about. So this is our website for the Eco-Leaders community. And in particular, I'm on the certification webpage, and it shows basically just some of the benefits and some of the options that you have for certification. Here's an example. I may be going too fast. Please, Laura, let me know if I'm going a little too fast. But
yeah, it was a little pixely there before you switched over.
Okay. Here's an example of a profile page for one of our certified eco-leaders that shows an example of an eco-mission. And so Megan's mission is to create a more resilient, locally based, sustainable, and equitable community food system that enhances the environmental, economic, and social health of her community. So she's very focused on local community. We have other individuals whose eco-missions are international in scale. She's specifying that agriculture and food are her passion, and that's where she sees herself making a difference. You can see on the side here that she's earned 3 different badges. So she's achieved the Pollinator Eco-Leader badge, which I'll talk a little bit about. Her project has been certified, and she herself has been certified. And I think if I go down one more time, okay, actually I'm going to move over. I think that'll be quicker. So this is her EcoLeader project profile page. It's called Share the Harvest. And again, like her eco mission stated, her passion is about local community agriculture and promoting and developing that within Gillette, Wyoming. I'm going to show one other EcoLeader project. It's called Swapathon, and this is one that was done by students at Moraine Valley Community College in Illinois. And basically it's as students are moving in and out of the dorms, rather than trashing some of your dorm items that could still be reused, they organized an event to help facilitate those trades, so that if you had furniture or items or even decorations or whatever you had in your dorm room, and you're either moving to a different dorm and don't want to take it with you, or you've graduated and are moving off of campus, they've organized a way to facilitate those exchanges. And one of the great things is that, and I could have scrolled down and showed this on the Share the Harvest page as well, is that they link to their Facebook page and they link to their flyers and calendars. And so, like I said, if you're looking for an idea for a project to do on your campus or in your community, browse the website, and you may find a project like this that has a lot of the details and project management files available for you to download and customize for your own community or your own campus.
That's really awesome, David. Do you have to be a member to see these, or can anyone look these up?
It's a mix. So I have trouble remembering exactly what is you have to be logged in order to access or not. I do know that in order to look at someone's profile, you do not have to be, but to search for it, you do. However, all that said, it is free to set up a profile on nwfecoleaders.org. So even if you get to a page that says you need to be logged in to access this, most of the Career Center resources do require you to be logged in order to access it. That's a free and simple process, just choosing a username and associating that with an email address. Of course, we would love for you to fill out your EcoLeader profile to the max of interacting with EcoLeaders, and the more information about yourselves that you provide, the easier it is for our staff to hey, I see that you're interested in this type of project. You may not have seen, but we just put a book in agriculture, or we have a webinar that talks about justice jobs, and so we can help point you to some of the resources within the community that would be most of interest to you. So of course, yeah, we definitely encourage you to set up a profile and to browse, but also to interact with individuals. And one way to interact is through our forums. So in our support others aspect of the EcoLeaders process, one way to do that is to get involved in our forums. And so this was someone who is really interested in recycling and asked about the ideas that other people had for the projects that they've done. And it's probably blurry because I'm scrolling, but people chime in and they give their ideas. And so the forums are a great way. Also, you can click on an individual's profile and say, hey, I saw that you did, this type of a project. I'm really interested in doing something like that. Can you just talk to me? And hopefully they will respond. The people are pretty friendly. The only thing is that our usage in the site, of course, waxes and wanes with people graduating, with people with this semester, because it is mostly college students. On our project planning page, here we have, and this tracks to the certification. So I'll show the certification page as well. But our project planning page has our resources organized by planning, doing, communicating, and sustaining your project. And so each of those 4 phases of the project design and management process has a group of resources to help you develop a marketing plan, create a budget, implement the budget, organize meetings, et cetera, fundraise, all of that. We have a number of a whole library of resources to help you through the project design and management and implementation process, so that when you get to the certification, it's basically just checking boxes and you're ready to apply for and get the certification, the EcoLeader certification. And I'm going to go back to the presentation, and that's slides. Okay, perfect. Okay, so as I mentioned, we have a number of different badges and certifications that are available for individuals, but I want to talk mainly about our highest level individual certification, which are Community EcoLeader and Campus EcoLeader. There's really not much difference between the two types of certification. It's basically, if you're a student, we encourage you to choose the Campus EcoLeader certification, because some of the questions that'll be asked will identify your school, and then we can more easily find the information related to different projects that have been done in different communities or on different campuses. And then in addition, the Campus EcoLeader certification process identifies a faculty advisor, and that will help us with working with you to make sure that the project that you've done is sustained. So when you graduated and moved on, we can stay in touch with some faculty or administrator on campus to make sure that that project, if it's an organic garden or a bicycle share, something that it continues after you've moved on. And as I mentioned when I was showing the resources, our certification is based on a 4-phase project design and management model: planning, doing, communicating, and sustaining. And the certification application will have sections for each of these phases of the project cycle, and you will identify, these are the things I did to plan my project, these are the things I did to implement my project, and we'll ask for examples. A lot of our certification is sort of an honor-based system. If you say that you organize your meetings based on a particular meeting philosophy, Robert's rules, or whatever you use, we're not going to ask you to provide us all of your records of all of your meetings. But we may say, can you send us an agenda from one of your meetings, and just spot check some of those things. If you say that you had a Facebook page to communicate your project to the campus community, we'll definitely ask you to go ahead and send us that link so that we can check it out and make sure that it's part of the project profile on the website so that other people can find it and use it for planning their own projects. Some of the other things that fall under planning are recruiting, setting a vision, doing research, identifying what other people have done to accomplish the goals that you're trying to accomplish. In the implementation phase, education and training, if you bring information to your team, to your project team, that's part of the doing phase. In communication, of course, marketing, telling your story, any reports that you have to do. One question that we get asked a lot is whether you need to do a brand new project in order to earn this certification, or if you've done a project on your campus, can you use that to apply for the certification? And we say, yes, you absolutely can use that to apply for certification. The only caveat is that you would have had to have been involved in all 4 of those phases of the project implementation. So if you came on and the planning process had already been done, you wouldn't be able to check those checkpoints to say that you had participated in the planning of that project. So absolutely, you can use our resources to create a new project, or you can apply for our certification with an existing project that you've already done. And last, sustaining, that's basically just fostering reflection, continuous improvement, as well as setting procedures in place so that after you have moved on from your campus, that it continues being a successful project. This basically goes, I already indicated this, the only difference between, or one of the important differences between campus and community certification is that the campus certification requires some sort of a contact on that campus that we can keep in touch with after you've graduated. And then I'll go back to sharing my screen so I can show you the actual certification application. Let's close this. I'll just show you the first. I'll show you the first page of it, because you do have to. There's required elements in order to be able to go to the next section. So obviously I can't do that. But you put in your project name. You put in the URL from the EcoLeaders database or the EcoLeaders website. Basically, this is just checking off that you've done each of these things. You've created a profile. You've done a project. You've learned about leadership, you've supported others, and then, I'm probably going too fast, and then we have some resources, such as the Earth Charter, the Smithsonian Primer of Biodiversity, so some sort of self-education and reflection is necessary in order to apply for and achieve the certification. And then over on the side, because it is form-based and you have to fill it out as you go in order to access it, there is a PDF that you can click on and see the entire certification application, so that before you go in and start filling it out, you can see, oh, this is what I'm going to need. And so, for instance, under planning, under visioning, planning, and research, it shows you all of the things that you could possibly check as part of your certification application. I'm going to go back to the presentation. Okay, just a few more slides, I think. Just real briefly, I'll mention that while I'm focusing on the individual certification, the campus certification, and the community EcoLeader certification, those are both individual level, and they're the most rigorous and they're the most honored. Our other levels of recognition are projects. So if you are really proud of the project that you worked on and you want to give recognition to the entire project team, and maybe they didn't all lead, they didn't all participate in all 4 parts of the process, so maybe they're not eligible for the individual level certification, you can get a project certification that's basically saying, we recognize the success that you did, that you achieved with your project, even if all of the individuals may not have participated in the entire process. And then the badges that we have 2 badges right now, pollinator and wildlife crossing, and that's basically just something to learn about and then share what you've learned. So those are free. All of the certification and badge recognition options on this page are all free, and so they're lower touch, they're easier, but it's just something to encourage you to learn and to share what you've learned with the people around you. I'm going to skip a slide because I'm looking at the time and it's getting a little bit later. So we want to say, how can certification work for you? Of course, it's something that you can put on your resume. And what we have heard from certified eco leaders that have gone and used that in the job application process is that it's a great communication tool, especially for folks who have less professional experience. In a typical job interview, when you're in mid-level career, you talk about the successes that you've had at your jobs. When you're coming out of school, of course, they know that you can talk about the coursework that you've taken, your GPA, and some of the extracurriculars that you've gotten involved in. But having a legit project and being able to talk about the metrics that you've succeeded with that project, and then having the weight of the National Wildlife Federation say certifying your effort is a great way to, when you get to the interview process, to frame what you've accomplished on your campus. Say, using the National Wildlife Federation, I interacted with an international community of over 2,500 to help plan a composting project in my cafeteria, and we've been able to divert, X pounds of trash from the landfill, and the National Wildlife Federation has certified my efforts and my understanding of the project leadership cycle, and also is recognizing and certifying the soft skills that employers are often looking for. I understand working on a team. I understand communicating between internal and external stakeholders. I understand how to have a productive meeting and how to avoid meetings when meetings are unnecessary. I guarantee you, if you say that during a job interview, someone's ears are going to perk up. So those types of soft skills are what we're certifying. And that brings me to one point that I've been asked is, I tried to do this project and it wasn't really successful. It just sort of fell apart by the end. But I'm about to graduate. I don't really have time to do another project. And I said, what we're certifying is not, so if you're applying for the project certification, that's different. But individual certification, what we're certifying is your development as a leader and your understanding of project management. It's sort of like Laura, you mentioned the PMP. It's sort of like a PMP light. It's just saying that you understand and have experience working on projects on a project team. And so post it to your LinkedIn, use it to frame discussions and job interviews, etc. And because we are running out of time, I'm going to go ahead and switch over to questions if they have come in.
Thanks, David. That's a great program. And I think that I like that you have the career plan as part of it. I think that's really where universities fail students a lot. It's just like, okay, you got your degree, come out the door.
Yeah. And in the defense of university career services, we talk a lot about class size and ratio of teachers or instructors to students. We don't often talk about the ratio of career services professionals to students, and it's abysmal.
Oh, yeah.
They don't have the resources, and that's one of the reasons we added the careers to our program. Is like, we recognize that career services professionals are overtaxed. They only have so much time to work with individuals or on an individual level basis. We want to help fill that gap.
And then also, like you said, these are the skills that the businesses need. They need people who can get stuff done. And like you said, get it done effectively. Everyone's super busy these days, so they don't need people who need to learn soft skills on the job so much. I mean, you're always going to, but the more you can bring to the table, the better.
Yes, absolutely.
So let's see. I don't see any questions typed in here. So guys, if you have any questions, put them in there. If not, I'm going to jump into my questions for David. And so the first one then.
Well, before you do, one thing that I didn't mention is the cost. Because we designed this certification for college students primarily and are now opening it up to high school students as well, it is a low cost. It's a $30 application fee. And if your certification is not, if you don't meet the requirements of the certification, certification, you can reapply until you do. So it's a one-time $30 fee until you actually achieve that certification. And some of the benefits that come along with that are some of the career resources and some on-the-ground opportunities where in your location to get involved with different things. So, and we're constantly adding to the benefits of the EcoLeader certification as we can.
Okay, and then so along those lines, does your certification need to be renewed?
It does not. And so when you had the slide on the differences between certification and certificate, it kind of like straddles the line there. At this time, there's no continuing education component of our certification. And because it is more geared towards a graduating student with little work experience, it's most likely that more rigorous certification and degrees will come down the line. And so, for instance, you wouldn't necessarily need an EcoLeader certification to demonstrate your project management experience if you've been an actual employed project manager for 10 years.
Right. Yeah, no, I think that's great. It's perfect. It kind of like fills a little bit of a need there, you know. So I think that's great.
Yes. Sweet.
It doesn't have to be renewed. Let's see. So another question here. You mentioned that you have some certifications. What are those? Or had?
Yeah. So I had, as I mentioned earlier, I had my EIT and my professional engineer license when I was an environmental engineer. And I now have an EcoLeader certification of my own. all of the members of our team were encouraged to go ahead and go through our own certification process. As well as the Anacostia Watershed Society. I'm also working towards, or I have plans to work towards the PMP, the Project Management Professional Certification, as well as the CDA, National Career Development Association's Global Career Development Facilitator Certification. Which is along the lines of the work that we do, but a valuable certification within that space as well. I would love to get an ISSP certification because I do recognize that their professional network is incredibly vibrant and diverse. I would have to study like crazy for that one because it doesn't really align with what I do. I work in the sustainability space, but I'm not myself doing life cycle assessments or direct sustastainability work.
Never know where your future might go.
That is true.
So in the EcoLeaders program, which kind of programs that people are in universities typically come from? They
right. So
biology or environmental science or still.
Yeah. With our name and our history, we are not surprised by the fact that most of our EcoLeaders community, it's like 70%, come from the natural sciences, wildlife, biology, etc. But we have created resources and in particular the career resources. We're always trying to break out of that mold. So we have resources for people who are interested in law and environmental justice, for buildings, for alternative energy, for climate change mitigation and adaptation. We're interested in supporting students that are passionate about the environment, regardless of what they're studying. We want economic students to be sustainability minded so that when they enter the workforce, what they're doing is informed by the triple bottom line, whether they're working in a zoo or working in an office. we want them to have a sustainability mindset. And the project, I mean, where you want to work, telling a potential employer that you have documented and certified project experience, it doesn't matter what you studied, that's going to be valuable.
Gotcha, thanks. And then, so do you guys track and follow? Do you know where your students or members go after they move on? Do you know what kind of careers they're getting into?
Yeah, so that's one thing that, like the colleges and universities we need to get better at, and it's just a difficult thing to do. We periodically reach out to everyone that's within the EcoLeaders community, as well as individuals who have been fellows for us, or who have participated in our conferences to try to check in, but a lot of that is self-reporting, so it's kind of difficult. We have individuals who have gone on to so local and state sustainability directors, quite a few who have stayed within academia and are continuing to do sustainability research. Some of our superstars in particular have been in the urban agriculture movement here in DC, as well as in particular here in DC. It's quite popular, but in some other locations as well. Entrepreneurs, one who went to work for a energy startup. She was one of the ones who I can think of as not having come from a natural sciences background. Okay. As well, that she was just a business major that was just passionate about the environment, came across our program, got involved, and is now doing what she loves.
That's awesome. So let's just do one more question. There's a few minutes left.
Okay.
What would be your recommendations for a starting point for someone to decide what kind of certification they should look for? Is there any sort of process for that, or?
I mean, that's going to go.
2 minutes, go.
That's a tough question. It's going to go really based on your individual preferences for mapping out your steps in your career path. So one of the tools that we have in our career center is it's called a career planning tool, and it takes through 5 steps of planning out your own individual career path. You start with doing some reflection of yourself. What are your skills? What are your interests? Where do you see yourself making a difference? You do research. You declare a mission. You do more research and identify what are some academic programs, professional associations. Start building your network, and then you set some small short-term goals, and some of those could be apply for and receive a entry-level certification. I think, of course, I'm going to say the EcoLeader certification is a great opportunity for anyone to, regardless of their background, to get a certification on their resume and be able to talk about some of the experiences that they had on their campus or in their community. Really, it depends on where you want to go. I think that what I had mentioned before about professional associations, getting involved with professional associations early on, it's one of those things that college students unfortunately put off, or not necessarily put off, but don't necessarily recognize the value in getting involved with professional associations until they've graduated. Some campuses have student chapters, and that's fantastic, and kudos. But a lot of people don't necessarily have those resources. But just contacting a professional association in the sector or place that you plan to get involved in, and say, hey, I'm a student, this is what I'm studying, and I want to know, like, what are the best ways to find resources and build my network. That kind of initiative is so powerful.
It always comes back to networking.
Yep.
It always does. All right, so your key takeaway for this is how to network, which is a great segue. Thanks, David, for next month's webinar. I just had light bulb on, I'm like, oh, I gotta put that up there. So next month's webinar is going to be how to network creatively without feeling stalkerish, because like you said, a lot of people hesitate to start doing it, and they start doing it after they graduate, and they have to. It's a little scary when you're still in school and going to work with people who are actually already working. So I'm going to talk about ways that you can do that and take the fear out of it. And anyway, thanks, David, so much for all this great information. It's an awesome program. I wish I had known about it a long time ago. So anyway, we are at time. Do you have anything else you would like to say?